Her engagement was cancelled, and she randomly married a poor man, unaware he was a mysterious millionaire. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The heavy rain fell like a curtain outside St. Vincent's Chapel, washing away the petals scattered on the church steps. Emma stood there, still in her white engagement dress, mascara streaking down her cheeks, the engagement ring slipping off her trembling fingers and landing in a puddle. Her fiancé Jason had just walked out with another woman, his ex, the one his family preferred. The whispers from the guests still echoed behind her as flashbulbs popped from the press waiting outside. "Please, Miss Monroe, any comment about the broken engagement?" one shouted. Emma didn't answer. She just turned away, heels sinking into the mud, the taste of shame and heartbreak burning her throat. By the time she reached the street corner, the storm had soaked her completely. A passing car splashed water across her skirt, but she didn't flinch. She just kept walking, blind with tears and humiliation. Then came a voice, a calm, grounded male voice, from under a worn black umbrella. "You shouldn't walk alone in weather like this," he said. She looked up. The man was tall, early 30s maybe, his dark hair damp, his jacket faded but clean. His hands were rough, like someone who worked with tools. He offered his umbrella without hesitation. "Take it," he said simply. "You look like you need it more." Emma shook her head. "I'm fine," but her voice broke on the last word. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that didn't ask for anything in return. "You don't look fine." Something inside her cracked. Maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe the need to feel seen. She laughed, hollow and breathless. "If I ever get married again," she said bitterly, "it'll be to the next man who shows up." The stranger raised an eyebrow. "Then I guess," he said softly, "that's me." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The rain fell harder, filling the silence between them. Emma blinked at him through the downpour. "You're serious? Are you?" he asked back, steady, no trace of mockery. She studied him, no ring, no tie, no sign of wealth or pretense, just calm eyes and quiet strength. "You don't even know my name," she said. "Then let's start there," he replied. "I'm Noah." She hesitated, then exhaled. "Emma." They shook hands, rainwater dripping between their fingers, as if sealing something neither of them understood yet. 2 hours later, under the flickering lights of a nearly empty city hall, the clerk looked from one to the other, confused. "You're sure about this?" Noah nodded. Emma swallowed hard but didn't back down. The pen scratched across the paper, her signature trembling but clear. When the clerk stamped the certificate, the sound echoed in the quiet room. Final, irreversible. Outside, the rain had stopped. Emma stood on the steps in her soaked dress, staring at the cheap silver band Noah had slipped on her finger. "This is insane," she whispered. He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Maybe," he said. "But sometimes, the craziest choices lead us home." As the city lights shimmered on the wet pavement behind them, neither of them noticed the black car parked across the street, engine idling. Inside, a man in a suit watched them quietly, then made a call. "Sir, we found him. Grant Hale. He's not gone, he's living under an alias." The line clicked off. And somewhere in the dark, the so-called poor man held Emma's hand a little tighter, unaware that his secret life as a mysterious millionaire was about to collide with hers in ways neither of them could imagine. The next morning, Emma woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of traffic outside a small apartment window. The sun slipped through half-closed blinds, painting stripes of light across the old wooden floor. For a moment she could not remember where she was. The ring on her finger caught the light, and reality hit her like a wave. She had married a stranger. Her pulse quickened as she turned her head. Noah was standing by the counter, stirring sugar into 2 chipped mugs. He wore a faded gray t-shirt, his dark hair still damp from the shower. When he noticed she was awake, he smiled slightly. "You drink coffee, right?" he asked. She sat up slowly, the blanket sliding down her shoulders. "I do. Black." He nodded. "Good. That is the only kind I can make." His calmness was almost disarming. Emma looked around the room. It was small but clean. The walls were bare except for a single shelf with a few books and a plant that looked half alive. Her designer gown hung over a chair, still damp from the rain. Her engagement life, with all its glittering expectations, felt like something that had belonged to someone else. She took the mug and whispered, "So we are really married." Noah leaned against the counter. "That is what the paper says." There was no teasing in his tone, just quiet certainty. She took a sip. The coffee was strong and bitter. "I do not even know what you do for a living," she said. "That makes two of us," he replied. "You do not know what I do either." Emma let out a weak laugh. Touch. For a few seconds, they stood in comfortable silence. Outside, a bus rumbled past. The city was waking up, but she felt suspended between two worlds, the one she had just lost and the one she did not understand yet. Later that day, she returned to her parents' mansion to collect her belongings. The housekeeper's eyes widened when she saw Emma's plain clothes and the modest ring. Her mother met her in the grand hallway, arms crossed. "You humiliated this family," she said coldly. "You married a nobody on impulse." Emma swallowed hard. "I married someone who did not leave me standing in the rain." Her mother's eyes narrowed. "That man will drag you down." "Maybe he will keep me grounded," Emma replied softly, walking past her. Outside, Noah was waiting by an old pickup truck. When Emma climbed in, he did not ask questions. He just handed her a sandwich wrapped in paper. "You did not have to come," she said. "I wanted to," he answered. "I do not like seeing you fight battles alone." Something in his tone made her chest tighten. Over the next few days, Emma tried to adjust to her new life. The apartment had no marble floors or chandeliers, but there was something peaceful about it. Noah worked long hours fixing engines at a neighborhood auto shop, his hands always marked with oil. He came home tired but smiling, sometimes with takeout, sometimes with stories about the people he met. Emma spent her days looking for freelance design work, trying to prove she could stand on her own. At night, they shared quiet dinners, talking about nothing and everything. It was not romance, at least not yet, but a strange partnership built on silence, warmth, and curiosity. Still, she could not ignore the small oddities. The way he spoke sometimes, like someone used to giving orders. The way he seemed to recognize people from the expensive parts of town. Once, she found a wristwatch inside his drawer sleek, silver, engraved with the initials GH. She touched it carefully. When he saw her holding it, he said only, "A gift from someone I used to work for." She wanted to ask more, but stopped. Everyone deserved their secrets. One evening, they stood by the apartment balcony watching the city lights flicker below. Emma whispered, "Do you ever wonder what people think of us?" Noah tilted his head. "People think too much. I just live." She smiled faintly, realizing for the first time that peace did not need chandeliers. It needed honesty. And maybe, deep down, this stranger who had married her on a stormy night understood her more than anyone ever had. But as she looked at him under the glow of the streetlights, she could not help but wonder, who exactly was this man she had married? Weeks passed, and Emma began to notice small changes in herself. The first was how quiet mornings no longer felt empty. She would wake up to the sound of the old coffee machine sputtering, the soft clinking of Noah's tools as he fixed something in the kitchen, and somehow it felt like safety. One Friday afternoon, Emma stood outside the local diner, holding a folder of her sketches, her fingers trembling. She had spent years designing in secret, drawing dresses she thought no one would ever see. Today, the diner owner wanted to see her portfolio for new uniforms. It was not the glamorous world of high fashion she once dreamed of, but it was something. When she stepped inside, Noah was already sitting at a corner booth, waiting for her. "You did not tell me you were coming," she said, surprised. He shrugged. "Moral support. You have this." The meeting went better than she expected. The owner loved her clean designs and offered her a small contract. As they walked home, Noah stopped by a flower stall and handed her a single daisy. "For your first client," he said. Emma smiled, brushing her thumb over the petals. It was the first time she realized how good it felt to be seen for her work, not her last name. Life in the small apartment found its rhythm. Noah left early each morning, his hands always carrying the scent of metal and gasoline, while Emma worked at the table near the window, sewing samples by hand. In the evenings, they ate together, shared quiet laughter, and sometimes went on long walks through the neighborhood. He never asked much about her past, and she never pried into his. Yet she could not shake the feeling that there was more to him. Every once in a while, she caught a glimpse of his old self breaking through a call from an unknown number that made him leave the room. A visitor in a dark car who slipped him an envelope, the way he sometimes stared at the skyline like it held a secret only he could read. One evening, she found him sitting on the balcony, the city lights flickering across his face. "You are a hard man to read," she said softly. He smiled without looking at her. "That is probably a good thing. You do not talk much about your past," she said. "Not much to tell," he replied. "You just fix cars?" "I fix a lot of things," he said after a pause. "Some broken, some not worth fixing." His tone was calm, but there was something heavier beneath it. Emma did not press further. Later that night, while cleaning the table, she noticed a small leather wallet on the counter. It must have fallen from his jacket. Curiosity nudged her. She opened it and froze. Inside was an old business card embossed with gold letters. Grant Hale Industries. The name tugged at her memory. Grant Hale, the reclusive tech millionaire who had disappeared from the public eye years ago after selling his company for millions. Her breath caught. Could it be a coincidence? When Noah returned, she slipped the wallet back where she found it, pretending nothing had happened. That night, she barely slept. The next morning, she went to the public library and searched his name online. The screen lit up with headlines: Tech visionary Grant Hale sells empire, vanishes from New York, billionaire CEO leaves fortune in private trust. Emma stared at the photo on the screen. The man's hair was shorter, his jaw clean-shaven, but those eyes calm, steady, familiar. Her hands trembled as she closed the laptop. When she came home, Noah was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, making pancakes. "You are early," he said, smiling. "I wanted to talk," she said, her voice barely steady. He turned, sensing the tension. "What is it?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Who are you really?" The spatula slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a dull clang. For a moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the faint hiss of the stove. His expression hardened, and the man she thought she knew began to look like a stranger again. Noah stood frozen, the color draining from his face as Emma's question hung in the air. "Who are you really?" she repeated, her voice trembling but steady. He bent to pick up the spatula, buying time, his movements slow and deliberate. "I am the man you married," he said finally. "That is all that matters." But Emma shook her head. "No, it is not. I found your wallet. I saw the name Grant Hale." His eyes closed for a brief second, then opened again, calm but unreadable. "So now you know," he said quietly. "Grant Hale is a name I walked away from a long time ago." Emma stared at him, disbelief washing over her. "You are that Grant Hale? The tech billionaire who disappeared?" "Was," he corrected softly. "I was that man." "Why would you lie to me?" she asked, her voice breaking. He took a slow breath. "Because I wanted a life that was real, not one where people smiled at my money or my name. You met me when I was no one, and for the first time in years, that felt honest." Emma's chest ached, torn between anger and confusion. "You let me think you were poor. You let me struggle while you—" She stopped herself, the realization cutting deeper than she expected. "While you could have fixed everything." Noah Grant stepped closer. "Emma, I did not marry you to fix you. I married you because you were brave enough to start over. I wanted to be part of that." She stepped back, shaking her head. "You built your life on a lie." "No," he said, his tone low. "I tried to build it on truth, but I see now I should have told you sooner." The silence that followed was unbearable. Emma turned away, tears stinging her eyes. "I need space," she said, her voice cracking. "Please, just let me think." He nodded slowly, his face filled with regret. That night, Emma packed her things and left the apartment. The streets felt colder than ever. She checked into a small hotel across town, unable to face the press or her family. News of her secret marriage had not yet broken, but she knew it was only a matter of time. In her room, she sat by the window, staring at the city lights. The man she had trusted most had turned out to be someone she never really knew. And yet, despite her anger, she could not forget the kindness in his eyes, or the way he made her feel safe long before she learned who he was. The next morning, she received a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, "Meet me at the park one last time." Asterisk. She almost deleted it, but curiosity won. When she arrived, Noah was there, standing by the bench where they used to sit together. He looked tired, almost human again. "You should not have come," she said, crossing her arms. "I just needed to explain," he said. The company, the money, it was never meant to define me. I left it behind after my father died. I saw what greed did to people, and I wanted to disappear before it swallowed me too. Emma looked at him, her eyes softening despite herself. And you found me instead. I did, he said simply. And for the first time, I wanted to stay. She bit her lip, torn between logic and feeling. What happens now? He reached into his pocket and handed her an envelope. Inside was a check, unsigned. This is yours if you want out, he said. I will never stop you. But if you stay, it will not be for money. It will be because you still believe in what we started. Emma stared at the blank check, her reflection shimmering in the glossy paper. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she folded it neatly and handed it back. Keep it, she whispered. If I ever stay, it will be for the same reason I said yes the first time. His eyes met hers, hope flickering through the hurt. The wind rustled the trees, carrying away the tension that had built between them. For now, the future was uncertain. But one thing was clear: love built on truth had a chance, even after the biggest lie. Days turned into weeks, and Emma tried to rebuild the pieces of her life. She returned to freelancing, sketching designs late into the night, her mind constantly drifting back to Noah Grant Hale. Every headline she saw about his past made the ache in her chest grow deeper. Asterisk billionaire genius vanishes again. Asterisk Grant Hale spotted in Lower Manhattan. Asterisk, but none of them showed the man who made her coffee in the morning or left handwritten notes that simply said, "You are stronger than you think." One evening, as she was sewing a new prototype for a client, a knock echoed on her hotel door. When she opened it, a man in a black suit handed her a thick envelope. Inside was an invitation embossed with gold letters. Asterisk Carter Foundation, Annual Gala, honoring innovation and humanity. Asterisk. At the bottom, written in pen, were two words. Asterisk. Please come. Asterisk. She hesitated for hours, but something inside her told her to go. That night, she stood outside the grand ballroom of the Astoria, her simple black dress a stark contrast to the glittering gowns around her. The moment she stepped inside, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Photographers turned their lenses toward her. The woman who had once been abandoned at the altar was now the most talked about guest in the room. The lights dimmed, and the host's voice filled the hall. Tonight's event is sponsored by the Carter Foundation, under the leadership of one man who believes in rebuilding lives through second chances. Please welcome our guest of honor, Grant Hale. Emma froze as the spotlight moved across the room, landing on him. He stood tall in a classic tuxedo, composed but not cold, his gaze searching until it found hers. The room erupted in applause, but Emma's heart was pounding too loudly to hear it. He began his speech. A few years ago, I walked away from everything I built because I realized that success without purpose means nothing. I met someone who reminded me what honesty, courage, and kindness look like. She taught me that love cannot be bought or bargained, it has to be earned. His eyes never left hers as he spoke. So tonight, this foundation launches a new program dedicated to empowering small designers and entrepreneurs who refuse to give up, no matter how the world sees them. It is called Times the Brooks Initiative. Asterisk. The name hit her like a wave. Her hand flew to her mouth. Asterisk Brooks asterisk her last name. The crowd applauded, but she could hardly breathe. After the ceremony, she slipped away to the terrace, the night air cool against her skin. She needed space to think. Moments later, footsteps approached behind her. "You came," he said softly. She turned, tears shining in her eyes. "You named a foundation after me?" "Not after you," he said gently. "For you. You showed me what real courage looks like." "You did not have to do that," she whispered. "I know," he replied, "but I wanted to give back what you gave me a reason to believe again." She looked down, struggling to hold back tears. "Why me, Grant? You could have had anyone." He stepped closer, his voice low but firm. "Because when you looked at me, you did not see money or power. You saw a man who needed a chance to be real, and I fell in love with you for that." The words broke whatever wall was left between them. She exhaled shakily, whispering, "You still lied to me." "I did," he admitted, "and I will spend the rest of my life making it right." He reached into his pocket and handed her a small velvet box. Inside was a ring not extravagant, but simple and beautiful, just like her. "This time," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "no secrets, no lies, no contracts. Just us." Emma's eyes filled with tears as she looked up at him. The city lights shimmered behind them like 1,000 witnesses. "You are impossible," she whispered. "Maybe," he said with a faint smile. "But I am yours if you will have me." She took a deep breath, the weight of the past months lifting from her shoulders. "Then stop calling me Mrs. Hale," she said softly. "Call me home." He smiled, slipping the ring onto her finger. The applause from inside drifted through the open doors as they stood together under the silver glow of the city, no longer pretending, no longer hiding, just two people who had found their way back to the truth. After the gala, Emma and Grant's lives slowly began to intertwine again, this time without lies or secrets. The morning after his public speech, the press exploded with headlines about their reunion. Yet for the first time, Emma did not care what the world thought. She had seen the man behind the name, and she knew his heart was real. They moved into a modest townhouse on the edge of the city, away from the flash of cameras and whispers of high society. Emma returned to her designs, but this time with the help of the Brooks Initiative, which funded small creators and gave them a platform to grow. Grant handled the business side, quietly ensuring that every designer who reminded him of Emma's resilience got their chance. Each day felt like a rediscovery of trust. They shared coffee at sunrise, argued about little things like whose turn it was to buy groceries, and laughed until they forgot how much pain had once existed between them. One evening, Emma was sketching by the window when Grant appeared behind her holding 2 tickets. "What is this?" she asked, smiling. "A trip," he said. "Paris. You once told me you always wanted to see the Louvre." She looked at him, touched by the gesture. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything about you," he said simply. A week later, they stood on the Pont des Arts bridge, the Seine glimmering beneath them. Tourists passed, lovers locked padlocks on the railings, and Emma leaned against his shoulder, whispering, "I do not need a lock to keep us together." He smiled, resting his chin gently against her hair. "No," he said, "we have something stronger, honesty." That night, as they walked through the cobblestone streets of Paris, Grant received a call that made him stop in his tracks. His expression changed, his calm eyes turned sharp. "What is wrong?" Emma asked, her heart skipping. "Someone hacked into the foundation's system," he said. "It looks internal." The tension in his voice sent chills through her. They flew back to New York the next morning. Within hours, Grant discovered that a former associate from his old company had been embezzling funds from the Brooks Initiative to discredit him. The revelation shook them both. It was a cruel reminder of the world Grant had tried to leave behind, the greed and power games that had once destroyed everything he built. Emma found him that night in his office, staring at the city skyline, the weight of guilt in his posture. "You cannot carry this alone," she said softly. "This is my fault," he murmured. "I should have known better." "No," she said firmly, walking closer. "You trusted the wrong people, but that does not make you wrong for trusting. You built something good, Grant. Do not let them take that away from you." He looked at her then, his expression breaking. "You still believe in me after everything?" "I never stopped," she replied. "But this time, we fix it together." Over the next few days, they worked side by side to expose the truth. Emma used her creativity to design a campaign revealing the foundation's real work and the people it had helped. Grant gathered evidence, coordinating with lawyers and the media. When the story broke, the world saw not scandal but resilience. The same outlets that once gossiped about their impulsive marriage now praised them for standing together through adversity. A month later, the Brooks Initiative reopened with more transparency and stronger roots than before. That night, Grant surprised Emma with a rooftop dinner at their townhouse. The table was simple: 2 plates, candlelight, and a vase holding a single daisy, the same flower he had given her the day she earned her first client. "Do you ever think about how far we have come?" she asked quietly. "Every day," he said. "And if I could go back, I would still find you in that rainstorm." Emma smiled through tears. "And I would still say yes." He reached across the table, taking her hand. The city lights reflected in their eyes as the sound of distant traffic hummed below. They had faced lies, loss, and redemption, but now they had something neither of them had ever known before: peace. And for the first time since that fateful night outside St. Vincent's Chapel, Emma knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Months passed, and life between Emma and Grant settled into something real and steady. Their days were filled with work, laughter, and quiet evenings that felt like home. Yet beneath the peace, Grant could sense the storm brewing. Success always drew eyes. and not all of them were kind. One afternoon, Emma arrived at the Brooks Initiative headquarters to deliver new design prototypes for the Women's Empowerment Project. As she stepped into the elevator, she noticed the security guard giving her an uneasy look. When she reached the top floor, whispers followed her through the hall. Something was wrong. Grant's assistant hurried toward her, holding a newspaper. "Mrs. Hale, you should see this." On the front page was a headline in bold. Asterisk, billionaire's wife faked marriage to inherit half of foundation funds. Asterisk, Emma's blood ran cold. Beneath it were photos of her and Grant at the gala, cropped and twisted to look like deceit. The article accused her of using their relationship to manipulate charity money. "This is insane," she breathed. "Who wrote this?" "It came from someone inside," the assistant said. "We think it is Darren Quinn, Grant's old associate, the same man they had exposed months earlier. He was back for revenge." When she entered Grant's office, he was already on the phone, voice low but sharp. "Get the legal team on it." "No, I do not care what it costs." He looked up when he saw her, his expression softening. "I am so sorry you had to see that." "They are saying I used you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "That I only married you for money." He crossed the room, taking her hands gently. "You know the truth, and so do I. Let them talk. The noise will fade." But it did not fade. Within hours, social media was flooded with cruel comments. Paparazzi followed her from the office to the grocery store, shouting questions about her fake marriage. Sponsors began pulling out of partnerships with the foundation. Every headline chipped away at their credibility. That night, Emma sat on the couch, staring at the silent TV. "Maybe I should step down," she said quietly. "If I leave, the story dies." Grant knelt in front of her. "No," he said firmly. "You are not running from lies again. We built this together. We will fight it together." His determination gave her strength. The next day, Grant called a press conference. Cameras flashed as they stood side by side on the stage. "The article is false," Grant said clearly, his tone calm but resolute. "The woman beside me is the heart of this foundation. Without her, none of this would exist." Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was their original handwritten marriage agreement, the one they had scribbled in their tiny apartment months ago. "This was our contract," he said, holding it up. "It says nothing about money or inheritance. It says only that we promised to respect each other's boundaries and to stay honest. We broke some of those promises, but we found our way back to the truth. That is why I trust her more than anyone." Emma felt her throat tighten as he turned to her. "The world can say what it wants," he continued, "but I know who she is, and I would marry her again, every single day." The room went quiet, cameras clicking in stunned silence. Afterward, as they stepped outside, reporters swarmed them, but the tone had shifted. People were moved by his words. Online, public opinion began to change. Supporters flooded the foundation's page with messages of encouragement. That evening, back home, Emma rested her head on Grant's shoulder. "You did not have to defend me like that," she whispered. "I wanted to," he said simply. "You are my wife, Emma, and I will never let anyone rewrite our story." She smiled faintly, feeling tears rise. "Then let us write the rest together." Outside, the city lights flickered through the window, reflecting the calm after the storm. For the first time in a long while, Emma believed that love, real love, could outlast even the loudest lies. The weeks that followed the press conference felt like a slow healing after a long storm. Public opinion gradually shifted, the false story began to fade, and the Brooks Initiative regained the trust it had earned through real results. Yet, for Emma and Grant, the experience left a mark. They had faced betrayal, humiliation, and the weight of the world's judgment, but in surviving it, they found something deeper than love, absolute trust. One crisp morning, Emma walked through the foundation's office carrying a folder of new proposals. She stopped in front of a photo wall that displayed images of families and small business owners whose lives had changed through the program. Each smile was a reminder of why they had started this journey. When she turned, Grant was standing behind her, leaning casually against the doorframe. "You look proud," he said, smiling. "I am," she replied softly. "Not of me, of us." He walked over and slipped an arm around her waist. "We did good, Emma." "We are not done yet," she said, handing him the folder. "I want to expand the project to smaller towns, places like where my mother grew up. They need hope, too." Grant took the folder and nodded. "You have that look again, the one that says I am about to spend a fortune?" She laughed. nudging him playfully. Then it is a good thing you can afford it. The laughter between them was light, easy, and full of peace. But the story was not finished. That afternoon, Grant received a call from the board. The same associate who had slandered them, Darren Quinn, had fled the country but was trying to sell stolen assets related to Grant's former company. Grant knew he had to stop him, not just for justice, but to close that chapter of his life for good. "Do you have to go?" Emma asked that evening, watching him pack a small bag. "It will not take long," he assured her. "I need to make sure he does not hurt anyone else." "Be careful," she whispered, resting her hand on his chest. "You already lost everything once. I do not want to lose you, too." He kissed her forehead gently. "You will not." 2 days later, Grant returned, weary but victorious. The authorities had intercepted the transaction, and Darren Quinn was arrested overseas. The moment he walked through the door, Emma ran into his arms. "It is over," he said quietly. "For real this time." Tears welled in her eyes. "Then it is time to start again," she whispered. That night, he took her to a place she had never seen before, a quiet warehouse turned art gallery. Inside, soft lights illuminated rows of canvases. Emma stopped short, her breath catching. Every wall was filled with her sketches, designs, and paintings she had never shown anyone. Her name, Emma Brooks Hale, was written in elegant script at the entrance. "Grant," she breathed, her voice trembling. "What is this?" "A surprise," he said. "I wanted the world to see what I see every day, your vision, your heart, your art." She turned to him, speechless. "You built this for me?" "For us," he corrected gently. "This gallery will fund the next wave of our program. Each sale will help another woman start over, just like you did." Emma felt her throat tighten as she walked through the gallery, touching the frames one by one. It was more than a gesture, it was redemption, love made visible. She turned back to him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You have no idea what this means to me." He smiled softly. "I think I do." As the lights dimmed, music filled the air, a slow, familiar melody from the night of the gala. He extended his hand toward her. "Dance with me," he said. "Right here?" she asked, laughing through her tears. "Right here," he said firmly. And so, beneath the soft glow of her own creations, Emma rested her head on his shoulder as they swayed together in silence. There were no cameras, no reporters, no lies, just the rhythm of two hearts that had found their way back to each other after every storm. For the first time, she knew that the man she had married by accident had become the one she would choose, again and again by choice. The grand opening of the Emma Brooks Hale Gallery marked the beginning of a new chapter, not just for Emma and Grant, but for everyone who had been touched by their story. Guests filled the space, admiring her art and the mission behind it. The event was not lavish. It was warm, sincere, and filled with the kind of emotion that money could never buy. When Emma took the small stage to speak, her voice trembled, not with fear but with gratitude. "A few years ago," she began, "I thought losing everything meant losing myself. But sometimes, life strips you down so that you can rebuild not from pride, but from truth. This gallery is not just about art, it is about second chances and the people who believe in them." Her eyes found Grant in the crowd, his expression soft and proud. "To the man who reminded me that love is not about what we have, but who we become together, thank you." The audience applauded, some wiping tears from their eyes. When the ceremony ended, Grant joined her on stage, taking her hand. "You did it," he whispered. "No," she smiled. "We did it." The next weeks were a blur of success and serenity. The gallery received overwhelming support, the Brooks Initiative expanded into new cities, and their lives finally settled into the peace they had fought for. Yet one morning, as Emma walked through the nearly empty gallery, she stopped in front of a particular sketch, the first one she had ever drawn of him, the night after their courthouse wedding. He stood in the doorway watching her, hands in his pockets. "You kept that?" he asked. "I never let go of anything that changed my life," she said softly. He walked up beside her, gazing at the drawing. "That night," he murmured, "I thought you would regret marrying me." "Maybe I did," she teased gently, "for about 5 minutes." He laughed quietly, the sound deep and familiar. "And now?" She turned to him, smiling. "Now I thank the rain for bringing you to me." He took her hand, pressing it to his heart. "You know," he said, "I used to believe that love and business did not mix, that you had to choose between power and peace. But you showed me that real strength is building something that lasts with love at the center." She leaned her head against his shoulder. You built empires, she said, but this is the only one that matters. Months later, on a golden afternoon, they renewed their vows in the garden behind the gallery. There were no reporters, no grand stage, just a few close friends, the families they had chosen, and a sky painted in soft shades of pink and gold. Grant held her hands as he spoke. The first time we married, it was by chance. The second time, it is by choice. You are not my rescue or my redemption, Emma. You are my reason. She smiled through tears. And you, she said, are the proof that love is not about perfection, it is about persistence. When they exchanged rings again, the world seemed to fall away. The guests clapped, laughter filled the air, and music drifted through the garden. After the ceremony, they sat together on the old wooden swing Grant had built, watching the sunset melt over the city skyline. Do you ever think about how it all started? Emma asked. Every day, he said. One canceled engagement, one storm, one stranger with an umbrella, and somehow it led us here. She chuckled softly. Life is funny like that. He looked at her, eyes full of quiet wonder. No, he said. Life is kind when you learn to forgive it. She rested her head on his shoulder, closing her eyes as the wind carried the faint hum of the city below. In that moment they needed no words. The girl who once stood in the rain, and the man who once hid from his own name, had found not just love but peace. Their story had begun with a mistake, but it ended exactly where it was meant to, with truth, with kindness, and with forever.